Does your house look like this? Well, even if it doesn't, this is the video for you if you want to learn how to build better. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be giving you guys tips and tricks for building in Adopt Me. This video is going to be split into two parts. The first part is going to be for the exterior of your build and the second part is going to be for the interior. If you are not doing a glitch build, you can just skip to 747 for the tips on interiors. Before we start, there is a setting you should turn on. All you have to do is go to settings, then scroll down a bit until you see the furniture multi-coloring setting. If that is off, you probably want to turn it on, unless you are fine with having one color on your furniture. So the first tip is to have a color palette for your build. This is going to be my color palette for the exterior of my house. And as you can see, I have a lot of neutral colors as well as one pop of color, which is purple. When building, neutral colors are very good because they go with a lot of other colors. And I would also suggest having more than 2 colors in your color palette. If you need color palette ideas, you can also think of themes for your build. So for example, if you want to make your build water themed, you can have a lot of blues and beachy colors in your build. I suggest using 3 or more colors for your color palette because anything less than that will not look as good. Don't make your house a box or rectangle shape. If your house looks like this, you should add more shapes or change the shape of it. If your house is a box shape, it just looks really simple, and adding more different rooms or walls can make it have more dimension and be more unique. You can also use real-life buildings as inspiration for shapes. The shape of your build might also depend on what type you have. For example, castles might have lots of towers, but family houses might have a lot of rectangle rooms. I'm going to add another part onto this house so it has more dimension. Now I'm done changing the shape of my house and this is what it looks like. As you can see, I added a rectangle part onto my house. Another thing I forgot to say before is I'm building my house on a diagonal, so I like to use the small grid size to line up the walls better. You can change the placement grid size from the bottom left corner and it's really helpful. Don't make your house or rooms too big. If you make your house too big, it's going to be really hard to make the interior look good, and you might also run out of build space if your build is super giant. My house is medium-sized and I think I will be able to put every room I want in here. This is a mistake that I see a lot of people doing, is making houses really big. And then it's really hard to make them look good on the inside. Often there's a ton of big empty spots. There are a lot of different types and styles of roofs, but there are 3 that I recommend using. The first one is a flat roof. These can look good on mansions, city houses, castles, apartments, and stores. Flat roofs are really classic and they're simple but effective. The second roof I recommend is a slanted roof. These look good on modern houses and some stores. Slanted roofs are more uncommon to see, but I think they look really good and they are super stylish. My last roof that I recommend using is gable roof. If you don't know what a gable roof is, this is what it looks like. I've built a lot of gable roofs before and I think they look really good on houses such as cottages, cabins, and family homes. Gable roof is also a classic roof style and they add a lot of dimension to the house. For placing roofs on your house, I recommend using the height tool and height lock tool. The height tool lets you move an item into the air, and the lock tool will lock it so that when you move the item, it will stay in the air. I always use these tools when building roofs and they're super helpful. I'm going to build a flat roof on my house, and I usually use floor panels for flat roofs because they're cheaper and come in more sizes than the actual flat roof panels. For slanted roofs, you can use the straight roof panels or rotate floor panels to be slanted. For gable roofs, I recommend the tall straight roof panel or just the straight roof panel. Now the roof of my house is done and it looks pretty good. My next tip is to use textures. Adopt Me has a lot of textured walls and roofs you can use. However, I don't suggest using textures on a flat roof, as it can look really glitchy. I am going to use brick walls on my house to make the outside look more realistic. I suggest using brick, stone, or wood textured walls for houses. If you're building with textures, make sure that they don't overlap each other or it will look really glitchy. Now I have textures on all my walls and they are looking good, but there is still a lot to do on the exterior. If you are having trouble thinking of ideas for your build's shape or what stuff to add, looking at real-life buildings can help a lot. I don't recommend copying them 100% unless you really like the build, but they can help give you ideas. I usually like to take inspiration from real-life builds when I need ideas for detailing or textures. This is more of a build hack, but you can use different things to make windows. Adopt Me has these normal windows, but they don't look as realistic because they are just glowing. I suggest using mirrors as windows or glass shapes as windows. Of course, the normal Adopt Me windows can look really good too, and there is more options with them. But if you want to build something like a store or cafe, it can be useful to have windows that you can actually see through. Here are some examples of windows I've done using glass shapes. They are really effective, but they can be hard to build sometimes. I also only suggest using mirrors for windows on the inside of the house, because you can see the sky through the mirrors. I'm going to use normal windows for the outside of this house because I don't care about seeing the inside. I'm done with the windows now, and as you can see, I combined a lot of windows to make custom windows for my house, and this is what they look like. This is the last tip I have for exteriors. I like to add beams and wall trim on all of my builds because they help give a building more dimension and detail. My favorite type of beams to use are the cylindrical beams. I'm going to use this color for my beams, and I'm going to put them on every single corner of my build like this. Now, if you're doing a house with a gable roof, you can also add structural parts using wall trim or bricks or strings like this. Adding those parts can help a gable roof look more realistic, and it will add more detail to the walls. If you're doing a slanted roof or flat roof like this, then it's not necessary to add structural parts, but you can if you want to. If you want to add beams to a fancy build like a castle, you can use the castle corner trims or the ice pillars because they are bigger and more detailed. I would only suggest using these if they look better than the other options because they are also expensive. I'm just going to be using normal beams because my build is a simple house. Now I'm going to do the wall trim. I'm just picking the one that I think looks best with my build. I'm only gonna do wall trim on the base of my walls because I have a flat roof, so I don't need to do it on the top of the walls. If you feel like the wall trim is sticking out too much like this, you can just push it in using the height tool. Now I'm done with the wall trim, and I'm just going to add a few more things onto this house. I'm going to change this door to a more detailed one that will go with the house better. I think this one looks good. Now I'm going to add a few structural parts, and again, this isn't necessary for flat roofs, but you can do it if you want. I also added a bit of purple on the top of my house because it needed a pop of color. This is how the house looks like when all the tips and tricks are applied. Here is before and after of the exterior, and it definitely looks much better. My first tip is don't leave too much empty space. So this is an example of a house with a lot of empty space, and this is an example of a house that's filled and furnished really well. You can see that house looks much better when it has more space filled. This is a mistake that I see a lot of people make, especially with bigger builds and glitch builds. Often there will be a glitch build that looks really good on the outside, but terrible on the interior. In my opinion, the interior and exterior of a build are equally important, since the interior is where you do a lot of stuff like aging pets. Now, if you are someone who is minimalistic or likes to use minimal decorations, you don't have to add a ton of stuff, but just make sure to decorate in a way that makes the build look good. If you need ideas for how to fill space or what to put in empty spaces, things such as rugs, seating areas, shelves, or just decorations can look good. Adding plants such as trees, flowers, or bamboo can help make your build look so much better. They make your build look more alive and colorful, and they can also help fill random empty spaces. There is also a lot of build hacks for custom plants if you don't see any that you like. I also like to add seasonal plants to my seasonal builds. For example, I have a summer house that I put a lot of palm trees in. Or I might build a Halloween house and add a lot of pumpkins. Plants can also bring more detail to your house if you add them on the counters or shelves. I usually like to have some big plants and some small plants in my build because it adds a bit of variation. Using build hacks is very helpful if you need specific furniture that's not in Adopt Me, and it also makes your build more unique. I have a lot of build hacks in all of my houses, and here are a few of them that I've made before. For this castle I wanted to make it candy and winter themed, so I made a lot of candy using build hacks. There's also a ton of build hacks on YouTube if you don't know how to make something you want. Build hacks can also help add more detail to your build, and overall I think they're super useful. Newer furniture in Adopt Me tends to be more detailed and better than old furniture. A lot of the older furniture tends to be more simple and there's not as much to use. The recent furniture, such as the expandable house furniture, is way more realistic and looks way better. There's also more options for furniture now that Adopt Me has advanced building tools, and it's really helpful that they're adding furniture more often. A lot of the new rugs and paintings also look really cool. If you are making a glitch build or you just feel like the Adopt Me wallpaper doesn't match the color palette of your build, then wall designs will be really helpful. Here are some wall designs I've done in the past for different builds. And as you can see, they are really customizable and help with the theme or color palette of your build. I also love doing wall designs because they add a lot of detail to an otherwise empty and plain wall. The wall designs that I make are usually build hacks and they really help to elevate your build. I also like to add them to any part that feels too empty or plain. Sometimes just adding one thing on a bare wall can help too, like shelves, windows, or string lights. Wall designs that you make can fit any color palette or theme of build. And if you need ideas, I have a couple building videos on my channel. This is the last tip for the video, and that is to have good lighting. The lighting in a build can really affect the mood, and it can also make a build look way worse if done wrong. I usually do lighting when it's nighttime in Adopt Me, because that's when you can see it the best. The lighting color you should have will depend on your build, but I find that warm lighting is good for most builds. For warm lighting, I usually use the driftwood lamp or penguin lamp because they are small and have a good amount of light. When you're doing lighting in a build, it shouldn't be too bright or it will look blinding. And I feel like lighting is something that not a lot of people think is important when building. Here is an example of two different types of lighting in the same build. As you can see, it looks very different in both. Alright, that is all the tips and tricks for today's video. I hope these helped you guys a lot and will inspire you to build more. Bye guys.